Good morning. We are on record and all the people who were present yesterday are again here today. So Mr. Flash, we can then continue with the cross-examination.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The witness has got a package, man. Is that the one for the witness? Is that the one? Is that but you haven't got one to sort of cross his eye. You've got another one. You've got another one? Oh, okay.
For myself, yes.
Okay, I'm fine. Thank you.
But you need another one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Jurgens. Understanding where we ended off yesterday, and I was actually dealing just in relation to the reliability of the court. Just let's find my point. Anyway, saying that, I just want to ask you this question. You remember you testified yesterday that when we dealt with it, Lysander Road, I think it was page 65, Lysander Road, and you testified that the space system was searched and it identifies the nearest road.
Yes.
And you said that the possibility of that happening in this case, when we look at page 65, and you say the possibility that it searches the nearest road. Now, in terms of your version and our members' version, they're going to be too confident issue, because the members' version is going to be that the sender is about more than 120 meters away. What would the tracker use as a landmark to identify the nearest route? Do you understand what I'm asking?
The unit
Yes.
sends a grid reference,
Yes.
which references a specific place on the earth, on the ground,
Correct.
on the map. Once that information reaches the server then looks at the map data supplied by the map supplier, and according to what that map data specifies, it looks then in that spatial data what the nearest street to that position would be.
So the nearest street to that position, not actually the position.
That is the street name that it gives.
So
But
if
the actual position is the coordinates next to it.
So, because I don't want us to actually misunderstand this, and I take it at this time, you might have misunderstood why I shut the phone out of the cell, and I'm going to explain to you now why. Because if the map data, if this entire system has got a principal target range, and say this target range is that pole, or that grid, or that point. So that point at which it's identified is where the vehicle is. The system should unlock that point. Isn't that correct?
But it is what it's doing.
But
The position of where the vehicle is the grid reference that it
so
gives you.
here it identified it to us, the vehicle is in Lysander, but the vehicle is not in Lysander.
That is, if you look on the map, that grid reference, the street that was physically closest to the vehicle according to the map data was Lysander Road.
So that is why I go back, because you must remember yesterday I said about Namibia, abnormality.
That is something completely different.
Bear with me. I said Namibia by abnormality, and we concede to that. Let us accept it on face value. If the vehicle is standing there in front of the witnesses or in the street limits, which is what? Tapera. He lives in Tapera. The vehicle is standing there. but yet the system identifies it in a sample, but it's not there. What I'm asking you, and the reason why I'm asking you is, if it identifies then the sando, or which is the nearest point, it then means the information here is not actually reliable. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm not saying the system is wrong. I'm not saying he's right. I'm not saying you're wrong, and I'm not saying I'm right. But understand the question. If you are testifying,
I'm testifying that I looked on the map and that position was plotted on the map, and according to the map data, it is on the corner of Lysander and Dapper Road. But
this is what the issue, but the vehicle wasn't on the corner on the Lysander and Dapper Road. Do you understand what I'm saying? It was in Dapper Road. And that's going to be his version. At that time, when this information came through, the vehicle was in Dapper Road. But even if it is on a corner of Lysander and Dapper Road, the vehicle, as you say, identified the nearest in terms of a correct position, because it's on a corner of some.
Now, if you look at the positions between the ones that says Dapper Road and the one that says Lysander Road, it is just meters apart. So
that is why I'm saying the member is going to testify. It's more than 120 meters. It's going to be his version. Bear with me. What I'm saying, I don't want you to misunderstand me.
according to the map information, the street according to the map information is called that. If the map information is incorrect, that is a different issue. But the actual position on the map, you can go and look and pinpoint it on the map, and whichever map you're looking at will tell you what the street name is.
Yeah,
according to the map information that we have, it is called.
You even make it more easier. And you're confirming.
The street name.
You actually make it easier
name,
and confirming what we are saying.
The street name on the report is irrelevant. It is actually the grid.
So if it's an irrelevant, which means all the information in this is relevant.
No.
Because if you want us to accept it, yeah, like I asked you yesterday, you want me to accept it.
Shall I fetch my computer and show you on the city's own system where the hell it is on the map, so that we can just stop talking about a street address on a report and look
There's
on the
one
map
thing you're never
at what
going to
it
do.
is.
There's one thing you're never going to do. Let's try.
The city's system, not my system.
There's
the
one
system.
thing you're not going to do is subject me. You're not going to subject me.
So, Mr. Francois, I can't hear what you say.
I say he's not going to subject me. He's a witness. And he gets frustrated, it's fine. Let me put this to you. The city system, of which I work with now for maybe many years, and I work in the city for 31 years. I know it's mapped, and know it's database. I'm in a special service that's also civil aviation, maps, routes, points, to the point. And then I can understand where you're coming from, because your job is relying on satellites. My job is relying on manual stuff. And how it's put together. I actually contributed to the city system a lot, but that's not relevant now. So let's not subject myself as if I'm ignorant to even the city system and your system. The question is, and I put this to you, and you must respond to that. The member's version is, at the time when the Sando rail fractured there, he was not in the Sando road with the vehicle. So that means then that the information there is not reliable. How do you respond to that?
As I said to you before, if the vehicle, let's say for example, I'm at the intersection, okay? And I'm at the intersection of, I'm on street A, and I'm now on the intersection of Street A and Street B. Let's, for argument's sake, call it that I'm on Dapper Street, and the intersection that I'm crossing is Lysander Street, for argument's sake. Okay?
Okay.
I'm on Dapper Road. Okay?
Okay.
The system will measure my position from the center line of what it has as Dapper Road. Okay? If I'm in the intersection and I'm closer to the center line of Lysander Street, even though I'm in the middle of Dapper Road, it's going to say that I am on Lysander Street, because that is the street that is physically closer to the position on the map.
Okay. You said earlier, I'm going to put
So-
this to you then. You testified earlier.
As I said,
went
you
to
have
go
to
check.
interpret the information.
You said earlier you went to go check
Yes.
this place. Could you draw us a visual? There's a piece of paper. Draw us a visual sketch of the sender and Dapper. Draw it for us, so that I can prove to you what I'm talking to you and I'm saying to you, the reliability of a traction system is not reliable. I'll prove it to you. You not check it, can you draw it in your mind? Draw it in.
You don't want to draw me to you. You want me to draw you a map
Correct.
from something that I
Because you
look
said you
at?
went to check it.
Yes.
And you challenged the city
And that
system.
was some time ago.
Oh, you didn't check it last night. So,
No.
okay, I apologize. You didn't check it last night. Okay, let me then put it to you then this way. If you cross and it gets the nearest medial line in terms of the detecting system, why doesn't it then detect Dapper Road rather than the center?
Did you just miss the entire explanation that I
No.
gave you?
That is what I'm saying to you. You're saying if it crosses the intersection, but it didn't cross. That is our version. That's the members' version. You are saying because you are hoping to
if you type these coordinates into any map program, you can get it from Google Maps or whoever you want to get it to. If you type these coordinates in, you will see that the vehicle is on a property which is on the corner of Lysander, according to the maps, Lysander Road and
So you saw
Dapper
that the
Street.
vehicle was on the corner of that two. The house.
On one of the
Remember,
maps,
love,
on
it's
one
on
of
the
on
corner
one of
of
the-
two
on-
roads. That is what you are saying.
On one of the maps, that street is called 16th Avenue. On some of the maps, it's called Lysander Avenue. Because the street, the name changes at that intersection. So the one,
So
one
even
part
in
is
what you
called
are
Lysander, one
testifying-
part is called 16th.
Even what you are now testifying, it confirms our point that it's not a reliable information.
The information, the position of the vehicle according to the GPS coordinate is absolutely
But you did
right.
not just said it was 16 road and it's down the sender. Did you see how easy you make it for me? You confirming what I'm saying, that the information in the data provided out of the tracker system is not a reliable information. Now, as a matter of fact, just for the purpose of it, I'm going to share some information with us here. And you would see what the Labour Court rule, reliability of a vehicle tracking system, and how the Labour Court, and you know, of course, the Labour Court is not a disciplinary hearing of a frivolous meeting. Yeah. You know, I don't like to share information with you, Kenny, but guys, I'm glad we can probably. And you could see this is the reason why I couldn't download the case, Mr. Chairperson. I would have loved to have the entire case here. The reason for that is because due to a power failure, our system was down. And I tried this morning too, but nevertheless, the reliability of vehicle tracking devices as employee misconduct evidence, which is relevant here in this case. When an employee seeks to rely upon data obtained from a vehicle recovery device, which is the tracking system, not a staff monitoring system, not a time management system, but a recovery device. Evidence of an employee's misconduct, the employer must ensure that the data of such devices is accurate and reliable. In a recent labor court case of Sisonke partnerships and whatever, and as we can read the information there, I'm not going to read all, the employer was dismissed for what is generally known as ghost calling. This is dishonest practice of a salesman falsely reporting visits to customers. The employer had previously entered into contract with NETSTAR, which entailed the placing of vehicle recovery device in the company's motor vehicles to monitor employees' whereabouts. Upon discovering discrepancy between the employee's weekly report and the tracking device, which is here, this is what it is. These are the two evidence that the chairperson is giving, the employee weekly thing and the device. And I brought this for a specific reason, so the chairperson and initiator could go back and at home and also cross references. But then the importance of this, I would like to read something, importance of the case. Employer who choose to monitor the movements of its employees by means of a should ensure that the devices are highly reliable, before relying on the tracker data evidence against employees. So, tracking devices won't show Namibia, it shouldn't show Namibia, because court rejects it. As soon as such information comes out, it kicks it out. The second issue is Lysander Road, that would say the vehicle was in Lysander Road, but in the meantime you were saying to us, no, because it comes out of Dapper, it's crossing or intersection. So the tracking device was Lysander. Further evidence on your part is not reliable information. For its purpose and its stance, NETSTAR in terms of the tracking for recovery of the vehicle. Perfect system, highly reliable. Because you don't rely on the actual positioning of the vehicle. You rely on the nearest position of the vehicle, which is your crossroads, your nearest road. Do you now understand what I'm saying? The issues, and where you are correct, as reliable in terms of finding a vehicle, in terms of a recovery detection device. But for staff monitoring,
No, I don't agree with you.
please listen to what I'm asking you. For staff monitoring, the vehicle says it's there, but yet the vehicle, it's there. We've got it in the So that means if you are saying it's accurate, on that day you would have been in Namibia. And he drove 255 kilometers. It's on the data. And sir,
how many times do you want me to
Mr.
go
Flores,
over the same thing
can I
again?
say that the issue of a spike has been explained, and I understand the concept of a spike, that if there's a loss of a third satellite, momentarily it could give erroneous location. I understand that.
so you actually then agreeing by explaining what you are agreeing. You
What
actually
about the
agreeing
spike?
with us that the
No.
thing is not reliable.
No. I say I understand the concept of a spike. No, I didn't count it, but if you look at this thing, sorry me to explain. If you count all the lines here and the positions indicated, the spikes would be less than 0.1% or whatever. But the rest of the pattern is quite clear. That's how I understand it. So the occasional spike when the tracking device loses contact with the
Mr.
third
Chair.
satellite doesn't make it,
Mr.
doesn't
Chair.
invalidate it. I'm just giving you my understanding.
You are confirming unreliability based off your understanding of what you are saying.
Okay, I'm giving you my
Because
view.
then the witness can go, because you got the point, it's unreliable.
No,
Because you're relying on a spike, not on a position. The employer's case before us,
Yeah.
and the evidence is given you the position and the whereabouts of the worker at that time, not the spike position. We can go to the United States and we can go to the Pentagon and we can speak to the U.S. Marshals and ask them to come and explain the spikes. We are talking about a person and a car's position. Not the spikes issue, because that's a different a wave range system that's on it, because we're not challenging that. We are challenging in terms of what's here before us, the charges, and his position in relation to that.
So you're not confusing me. You say you're accepting a spike as an anomaly. Did you say that or not? I don't understand.
What I'm saying, we are not talking to the spike, because nothing here before us is to challenge the spike in the spike's position. We might not even have the competency to speak to it. The range of, or the frequencies and the waves based on spike positioning in the space, it's there. It might have at one time 120 of them crossing each other at one time that could interfere or alter with a positioning. And you are now saying, because it's your understanding of that, you agree with us that this is unreliable information. So then you can't agree. And your understanding, because this booklet here is the information that's used to properly influence yourself towards a guilty finding on the person. This information, not on the spike's position. Can we accept that? The spike's position is somewhere out there in space, even though they're Russian or China or Korea. It's somewhere out there. It detects a vehicle somewhere. Now suddenly this stuff crosses, so or whatever happened, then it gives you Namibia, which means that the information in the book is not reliable evidence, because the vehicle is not in Namibia.
Can I explain GPS triangulation for you on the board? When you have a signal from one satellite, then there is a very large area on the Earth where your vehicle could possibly be. If you can see the signal from two satellites, there's two places where the signal intersects, there and there. So there's, mathematically speaking, two possible positions where you could be on the planet. If you can see three satellites, then there's a third one, and there's only one place where the signals intersect. So there's only one possible place where you can be. If you can see 4, 5, 6, 7, up to 11 satellites, they all intersect in the same place. It's all circles cutting in the same place. So there's one possible place where you can be. If the unit loses sight of some of the satellites and only sees two satellites for a brief period, then there's two possible positions where the vehicle could be. It's not randomly plucked out of thin air positions, it's calculated physical two positions on the surface of the Earth. And because the units are not, the unit 50% of the time jumps to the wrong position, to the other one. And within a couple of seconds, or when it sees the rest of the satellites again, it jumps back to the correct position. So it's not a random position that is just sucked out its thumb out of thin air. It is one of two mathematically calculated positions of where the vehicle can be.
Okay. By Mr. J. And I like science and technology and mathematics. Like you say, and this is where it comes in, Mr. J. There's a range. There's the crossover point, either there or either there. Is it correct? Is it correct what you're explaining here? Let's forget about this. You will get 2 points. Is it correct? Because of the two satellites. So there's one of 2 points, as you say, it can be. Is that correct?
Yes.
Because of this thing here. So, if the vehicle, in our case today, where we are sitting, yourself, Mr. Jurgen, Mr. Peters, and all of us, the vehicle is standing here outside disaster management, which is here. That's where we are. There is in Russia, where we're not. And because of this, it reflects that we are there. That means, like you explained in your explanation, that information is unreliable. Do you now understand what it is I'm saying? You agree, the chairperson agrees, we all agree in saying what you are explaining to us.
Because as
Either that information is reliable or it's not reliable.
This,
If it's reliable, then we're in Russia.
the spike position is incorrect.
Yes, we agree. Yeah, you
Yes.
just stated it, but it is the spike. We accept it.
But the rest of the information is not
Reliable. Thank you.
It's not incorrect.
So you are saying that that vehicle was in Namibia that day?
No.
So
That's
you're
a
saying
GPS, it's a GPS spike, and you can easily identify it. So it was not in Namibia, it was at the other location.
so it was unreliable information that it was in Namibia. The fact that it shows Namibia is unreliable. Sorry. It's either, if it is reliable, it means the vehicle was in Namibia. If it's unreliable, it means the vehicle wasn't in Namibia.
Sorry, Mr. Flask, can I say? I understand the description which has been given and how spikes occur. Spikes occur when you have only information from 2 satellites, less than 3 satellites, you have a spike. That I understand. Spikes occur on a fairly, let's say, infrequent basis. If you count all the lines here,
But
we
Mr.
count the
Chair,
spikes, we will find out.
I'm not in a lecture here. I've
Excuse?
been to enough lectures for many years in relation to spikes and satellites. Can we pause that? You're not here to lecture me on spikes.
Chair,
Yeah.
The question that I'm
can I-
asking,
okay.
just hold on, Mr. Peterson. Okay.
I want to resolve this
Okay.
issue. Chair, I think this is an argument, and
Yeah.
obviously at the end of all of it, you must take everything that is
Yeah.
put to you into account.
Yes,
There's
yes.
no reason to now have a discussion about what is what.
Okay.
That is
That
the
is
argument.
argument.
That is the argument of the union. The union is saying obviously it's unreliable. The city is saying it's reliable.
Yeah.
And what is put on the table at the end, you must
I must
decide. Yes.
decide if I
Yes.
understand.
Without now giving an explanation about what you understand or
Yeah,
what is
okay.
expected.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Fine.
Okay. Now, saying to that, what does the word reliable mean, sir?
Sorry, but Mr. Flash, just a moment.
No.
No, just a moment.
Okay.
Based on what Peter said, you've got a position saying it's unreliable, and I follow your argument that why you say it's unreliable. I follow it. I follow his arguments. Well, I don't say which one I agree with, but I follow these arguments. In the nature of these hearings, it says in the procedure, it's an adversarial procedure. Now, so we're not in a sense trying here to reach agreement. If you put the same, then if you put the same position to Mr. Jerkins over and over again, he's going to say, no, I don't agree, and you say, but, and then you repeat it. So you're not taking us further.
I will
So I
withdraw
think
myself
at this point, let's accept that maybe he doesn't agree with you, but to keep on repeating the same question doesn't take us anywhere. Because I've heard your argument, I understand it. So keeping on with it doesn't take us
I'm happy
further.
with what you're saying there, Mr.
Fine.
Chair. Mr.
Could I answer?
No, not
Briefly?
that, please. Please, only when a question is put to you, may you
Well, you
answer.
did ask a question.
And
You
I
asked me
did-
whether when I look at the report, whether it's reliable or not.
No.
Whether I think it's reliable. That's
No,
what you just
no,
asked me.
please. We've now resolved that. We're moving on from that. If you may, Mr. Jerkins. Let's move on from that. The term reliable, what does it mean?
So then, Mr. Flask, can I ask you, you're almost going into argument. I mean,
No. I want to. Okay, sorry, Mr. Chair. I agree, I understand, but
Yeah.
now.
the argument, I mean, when it comes to closing arguments, we can do it, but
Okay.
yeah.
I want a better way of putting it than to you. I want a better. Let me, strange. Let's accept everything we've said and you've argued as far as correct. It is then correct that that vehicle was used on that day. How do you respond to that?
When a layperson.
No.
Moving back to the
Please,
to the point.
Mr.
to the-
Chair,
to the
I-
spike.
I-
You can get frustration. I know.
I didn't hear what you asked. So
We've now, I've said that Namibia, I've said that. We're moving on. Listen to what I'm asking you. Please, sir, listen what I'm and carefully. What I'm asking you, the fact that that information shows Namibia, is that reliable? can I rely on that information that the vehicle was in Namibia on that day? Can I now rely on it? And I'm finished with you. I want to ask you another question if you can answer that correctly.
When a layperson looks at this report and you don't have a technical understanding of how the system works, then the fact that the vehicle shows in Namibia is a red flag, and it looks to you that this system doesn't work and it's not reliable.
So
If you understand how
you
the system-
agree,
if
and
if
you don't agree with
that is what a layperson would assume.
Yeah, but you
Mr.
agree
Flash,
with
Mr.
me that
Flash,
it's unreliable.
Please give him.
They're going to chase me on late in the process and say, Mr. Flash, you're taking too long with the witness. Don't frustrate it longer for me. Just as simple, it's yes or no, sir. The fact that it shows there in Namibia, is that information reliable for me as a layperson?
For you as a layperson, it looks to be unreliable. But for me, who understands the system, it is reliable, and
So
I understand.
it's reliable that the vehicle was in Namibia on that day.
it was not in Namibia
Thank
that
you.
day.
I'm moving on, Mr. Chair. Now, the next question that I'm going to ask you relates to the time factors. And you must remember, let me put this to you first. Let me put this to you. And I know the sort of slander I'm going to get. When you start the vehicle, everything activates. The time, the position of the vehicle, is that correct? As soon as you switch it on, even before you start it, maybe there's an isolation switch or brake switch. In your car, you don't have any ignition. As soon as you switch it on, the system will activate. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right. So at 7:24, if I start the vehicle in Tapa Road, it means that's where the vehicle is. Is that correct?
It depends whether the vehicle is standing outside and able to see the GPS satellites when you switch it on, or whether it is inside the building.
Okay. So if it's inside a building, it's not going to detect. Is that what you say? It's outside, it's going to detect.
If it's inside, it can take a little bit longer before it can lock onto the satellites.
Okay, let's
Before it
call
will
it
give you an
delay.
actual position.
Let's call that delay because that's a technical excuse if you want to get out. You sort of justify. And I can live with it. Nothing wrong with it. So you are saying to me then, if you start that vehicle and everything activates, the correct information is not coming through. You see, sir, law is very limited, precise. There is no science explanation in law. Law, it is either there or it's not there. Do you understand? And I can understand in science and maths and technology, which have various explanations for various things, various times, but these things here before us, it's precise. I can't either be, it must either be that or it's not. That's why I'm asking that question.
When the GPS starts up, it takes a short while to acquire the satellites and to calculate the current position of where the unit is.
Okay. So you are saying that
So when
When
you
you start
so
them
when
up-
you switch the vehicle off, the position you get when you switch the ignition on might be some meters away from where the vehicle was standing when it was switched off.
So it means then, what you explained.
But it's not going to be like 5 streets away. It's going to be in the very close proximity.
In law, thousands of a set, this means a lot. In the Grand Prix, you will see, they often commentate, then you see how much they talk about thousands and the difference because there's a law impact. You get the 10-second penalty these days. But please bear with me. The information that I'm relying on here and asking you is persistent in the accuracy. So you are now saying.
And instead of talking in generalities, can you show me an example?
You testify, not me. You saying these things, not me. I'm not showing you any example because I'm not putting it, like you were saying, trying to refer my layman. So let me be. So I'm putting questions to you and you answering. It's based on your answers that I develop questions. I ask you a question. If I switch it on, the system activates.
Yeah.
So it shows the location of a vehicle.
Yes.
You are saying to me now, pending where I am, there's a delay. Is it that?
Brief delay, yes.
Right, so there's a brief delay. So that brief delay is enough time to cause doubt in terms of the accuracy where the vehicle was,
No,
or is.
no.
So you are
Because
saying,
because the unit records a position every minute, and even if my very first ignition on and off event is totally missing, I can to a large degree of accuracy say that within a minute of this position and within a close proximity of this position the vehicle was started. So even with missing information you can extrapolate what happened to the vehicle to a high degree of accuracy.
and you must not testify, you're not a lay person, you're a learned person. Is there change in difference of a vehicle's position over 1 minute period?
Excuse me?
Is there a difference in a vehicle's position in a 1 minute time frame?
If it's moving, yes.
So, if it then moves in 1 minute, whether it moves 5 seconds, 10 seconds from that point, or 5 meters, or 1,000 meters in that minute, the information that it's giving us when it activates, wouldn't that be correct, isn't it? Because it's not where the vehicle was.
But it's not really important because
It's important.
No, because the ignition off event, the unit was active and had a lock of satellites, and that is where the ignition was switched off.
I'll show you what is it.
So even if there's a brief delay and you get the ignition on some distance away, the ignition on was actually where the ignition was switched off, unless somebody pushed the vehicle down the street and then started it. So you've got the ignition off event, so the ignition on position is really not even relevant because it would be switched on if the ignition was switched off in general use.
So you're confirming again with me. When the system activates, it's not necessarily the accurate position of the vehicle.
Mr. Frost?
I asked the question. You asked me the question. The question was, in terms of what you are testifying, when the system activates, it's not necessarily the accurate position of the vehicle.
Mr. Chair, but Mr. Beer has already answered that 3 times already and explained what happened.
Yeah. Mr. Frost, I mean, I've heard that question and the answer.
People are running, and I know you are running, you like to run. So but I asked him, and I didn't ask the first time I asked him that question. Cowardness. It's cowardly, Mr. Chairperson, on both your parts. It's the first time I asked him the question.
I've heard the question before.
I've never asked him, it's the first time I asked him. Is he then agreeing with me? When the system activates, it's not necessarily the accurate position.
You already answered that.
occasionally, when you switch the vehicle on, depending on where the vehicle was standing and the signals that it's getting from the satellites, occasionally there's a short delay before the GPS can lock onto the satellites and calculate the accurate position of the vehicle.
But the system is not activated yet. The system was activated when you switch ignition on, isn't that correct?
Yes.
Or supposedly, in what case? If you explain that. Because I've asked you earlier when you switch it on, and you say no, not necessary. Because the GPS system will ever pick it up later. And let's accept it. Because it relates to the accuracy in relation to activation of the system. We're not past with the reliability. It's now activation. So you are now agreeing with me upon the activation of the system, that information is also not accurate. And that is all I'm asking.
Well,
can you say yes,
no,
possible?
it's possible, but the majority of the time where you switch ignition on is where the ignition was switched off.
Yeah, but
on the report.
But Mr. Jurgens,
And if there's a small difference, it is because it took a while for the unit to lock onto the satellites and calculate the position. But you have the position of where the ignition was switched off. So logically that would be where the ignition was switched on again. So that small difference is really not relevant.
okay. They are extremely relevant, sir.
If the vehicle was put on a flatbed truck,
here's
it was
an annual
not parked
report.
somewhere and then started, and you then want to say, was this exactly where the vehicle started? That would be a different thing because the ignition was switched off and it was put on a flatbed truck and parked somewhere else. So, but in a normal case where the vehicle is stopped somewhere, you've got the GPS coordinates of where the ignition was switched off, then logically that is where the ignition was switched on again. So even if there's a small discrepancy in where the ignition switched on position, that is nullified by the fact that we have the ignition off position.
You see, sir, for you, for the chairperson, for the initiator, for labor relations, it might not be that important. For him it is. Because between the four of you, he's going to lose his job. On the possibilities that maybe his family will be without a bread. It's important. The accuracy, if you're going to use NETSTAR, ALTECH system, tracker device, against him to get him dismissed, which that chairperson is possibly instructed to do or going to do, this initiator is instructed to do. It is important. Corporate governments demands that whatever you use in the system, in this case, as a tracker system, in somebody else's case, I don't know who, it's a clocking system. In somebody else's case, it's something different. Now, the importance for us in relation to this, how and when would we know that there's a delay in information, there's not an accuracy information, or there's even a possibility of that the vehicle has been locked in a lobby? How will we know, when will we know, so that we can correct the error and not be charged months later? Do you now understand the importance? How will we know? Like you testified, the vehicle might cross, the system might detect the nearest point. There might be a crossover, like the satellites or spikes. So there's all that possibility out there. How will this man know that information in his tracker record is probably, maybe not wrong, possibly wrong, that he can correct it? How will he know that? Instead of a municipal manager appointing a chairperson to come and sit and listen to a hearing, this tracker system, how will he know? Do you see the importance of advice?
As I said before, in my 8 years experience, when something goes wrong with a GPS system like a spike, it is very obvious. It stands out on the page. You can see the thing is in Namibia, that couldn't possibly have happened. That is an anomaly. If the system shows you a trip that follows in a logical order, go and plot these grid references on the map, and you will see that they follow a breadcrumb trail of where the vehicle traveled. You can trust it.
Mr.
completely.
Jurgens, that is why, you know, I like a lot of people, because they help me when I say it. You've got 8 years experience, you've got access to this information, am I correct? To identify when it's abnormally, when you ask, I'm not too sure if Mr. Vata drew this information on his computer. I don't know how we came about this.
Yeah, this report was drawn from NETSTAR systems in Johannesburg.
Okay, so that means this man hasn't got access to it, his senior hasn't got to detect abnormalities and for him to correct.
But there's nothing for him to correct.
That is just the point, sir. That's where corporate governments come in. That is why the special investigating units of the government, so many units of talent, has taken them to court. Because there's no proper governance, because there's nothing to correct. For that same reason. There's a system, beautiful system, a lot of money, taxpayers' money. We are sitting here, taxpayers' money. There's accusations that the vehicle or whatever is, we haven't gone through the charges yet. They let you testify. Possibly there, possibly not there, possibly not there. We're going to hold him accountable. And like you said yesterday, for those, how did you put it? For those that are guilty are the ones that question it the most, or that fights it, or that stand right face. Wasn't that your words yesterday?
In my experience in the hearings, the people who make the most noise about not liking the system,
Yes.
when you start looking at what they're doing, then they sit
You
there
start
with wide
looking at
eyes.
it. But the nice part, you start to look at it. You can't look at it to correct his behavior. And you remember I asked you about education and training yesterday, about the system. Staff are held accountable for a flawed system, and they don't get access opportunity to correct it.
But whether the system is fitted to the vehicle or not has got no it's complete. If I'm the boss of the company and this vehicle belongs to my company and I give the vehicle to an employee to drive, there's certain rules and regulations this person must follow with the vehicle. Whether there's a tracking unit in the vehicle or not is irrelevant. The tracking unit just gives me the ability to see that he actually broke the rules, otherwise he got away with it.
So the tracker
So
is
the
not-
fact that there's a tracker in the vehicle
So-
is, is that
so I can actually
you're making
go-
it as if the system,
I can go
as if
to-
there's
based on your
you-
testimony, I can take
you make
NETSTAR to court.
You make it out as if the fact that there's a unit
Listen to what I'm
that
asking
the
you.
driver doesn't know how it works is a detriment to him. It's not.
Based on your testimony, I can take you to court. Because I fitted a TrackStar system under false pretense. It wasn't there to monitor or to do the recovery of a vehicle, it was to monitor a person. Based on your testimony. So that adverts on the TV and the pamphlets that I bought the system on that understanding is a lie on the part of NETSTAR.
NETSTAR's got two product lines. We've got stolen vehicle recovery units and we've got fleet management units.
Okay.
I
What
think
is the
you're confusing
purpose?
the two.
What this system is this?
Fleet management.
Alright, if this is a fleet management system, what is the purpose and intent of a fleet management system?
To manage the fleet.
Thank you. Is this a fleet or is it a human resource? We must get in terms of, there's only three
It's a
resources.
user
One is
of a
money,
fleet.
one is money, one is equipment, then one is human. That's the three resources in any organization. Money, of course, which your company get millions of rands for. The tools, which is the vehicles, and you fit a tracking system. on that vehicles. The third resource is the human element, they do the labor. Now what if you got in his system to manage you with that?
We're talking about stuff that is not
So,
about the technical
Mr. Flask,
system.
Mr. Flask,
It's about-
can I say, Mr. Flask, when Mr. Jurgens gave his evidence in chief, in other words, when Mr. Van der Waarderen led him with various questions, asking him things, and he explained how the tracking system worked, that was his evidence in chief. And the purpose of that was to give me, as a chair, an understanding of the tracking system and later on in terms of argument how it supports the charges. That's what. So Mr. Jurgens' testimony was about to explain to us how the system works. And in your cross-examination, in the interest of your member, if you want to, in your cross-examination, get him to contradict themselves on the explanation of how the system works and make me doubts, then you in your cross-examination you succeed. But if you put questions to him which is not related to the technical how the system works, it doesn't really serve a purpose because that's not his testimony. His testimony is how the system works, and anything else is not his field of expertise. But the question
Chair.
about whether it's
Mr. Chair, I need to remind you, sir, and there's still a witness at the table.
yeah.
And I said yesterday, it would be best if you recuse yourself, because you're making it even more evident why you should do so. I'm not answering or asking, I'm asking questions based on what he said. He said it is to manage staff. The city bought it to manage staff.
I didn't say
Fleet management.
I didn't hear
Yeah, I just asked him then the question, the separation in the fleet management. Prior to that, he says no. It's if he's an employer, it would be for him to control his worker that fractures or break the laws of the vehicle usage. It's either you are lying or it's somewhere along the line we must come to an understanding here. This witness answered. If he's got an organization, he will want to monitor.
Yeah, the fact that whether there's a unit in the vehicle or not, the driver is supposed to stick to the rules that's laid out in my business.
So we can agree to that.
And the
that is
fact,
what I accept.
and if I've got two drivers,
I accept that, sir.
so whether
Without the system, there's a law that says you'll drive 60. You don't need a system to detect that then. You just need a complaint. Am I right? So all of us, even on our own homes, we agree and we accept that. I'm not disputing what you are saying. I'm agreeing with you. So you are agreeing with me. When we are saying the system is in there, based on the last question, to monitor the staff. And the operations of the
if you've got
corporate.
a tool that manages for your management of your fleet,
Thank
the
you,
fleet
sir.
is a vehicle. The vehicle is being
Thank
driven.
you.
So how the vehicle is driven is part of managing the fleet.
So you testify to what I want to hear, that the city is using this system as a tool to manage the staff using their vehicles. If you say that I'm wrong, like the chairperson wants to get out of this and initiator, it means then the opposite. That now the city is not using it as a tool to monitor its staff. It either does or it doesn't. Then you testify. Yesterday as well you testified.
A driver, an operator of a fleet asset. If you manage the fleet, you have to manage the operator of the asset as well. It's part of fleet management.
That is so the best part about it. You agree with me then when we are saying the employer is using your device, your company's device, to monitor staff behavior. Is that correct?
Whenever there is a complaint or something, then it's yes.
So then, correctly so, then when I asked you earlier, where and how does he have an opportunity to correct anomalies? Because surely, when an employer has a system to monitor its staff behavior, this operator must have access to correct.
But that's not my concern. That's an
Okay,
city
the
system.
tool then, your system, because it's your system must then allow the operator access to correct.
Whoever gets access to the system is not up to me. It is an internal.
You don't
thing
listen to
about
what I'm
the city.
saying to you, sir. Are you going to be the type of employee like you say when you have a company you want to manage? You going to be a type of person in a company that deny workers their rights, like in the pre-democratic era?
Chairperson.
Yeah. So we really,
It's relevant.
Mr. Peterson, yes?
Chair, sorry, man, I think the question is totally irrelevant. We're moving away from the...
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm going to ask you for the last time to recuse yourself.
No, I will not recuse myself.
Because if you're not going to do this, we're going to put in a complaint against both of you. Mr. Peterson knows what he's allowed to do here. He cannot say to us as a labor relations without just, Mr. Chair, relevance or irrelevance. He's a labor relations specialist. There's the man.
Yeah.
He's not saying it's irrelevant or irrelevant. He can't object to it and you must go, Mr. Chair. Please,
I'm
man.
trying very hard to see relevance myself. I must tell you that.
Then say it to me, but Mr. Peterson don't have the right.
No, in this hearing, if he wants to point something out, he's free to do so.
No, he's not free to do so.
He's free to do so.
You abusing your rights as a chairperson. You can, Mr. Chair, can this witness just excuse us ourselves here, please?
No. No.
I'm not going to allow you to fracture the right of this person.
No. You can please continue.
Sorry, we're gonna go. Sorry, Mr. Chair, can we go, keep? I will speak to my member. Your nose.
Chair, I think we should go on the members.
If you leave, we still can continue with the hearing.
Mr. Chair, I ask you to
If you absent yourself,
I
you do
ask
so.
you, as the chairperson in this hearing, to excuse the witness so we can talk to you. So you say no.
I said no, yes. I didn't say no.
You said no.
Yes, you can continue, you can conclude your cross-examination and then if
No, but I want to address you in the absence of the witness.
you can address me now.
No, I can't, Mr. Chairperson. Mr. Peterson, advise your chairperson.
Mr. Flask,
That's the onus I'm putting on you.
Mr. Flask, you are...
I want to address you in the absence of the witness.
You trying to disrupt the proceedings, that's what you're trying to do.
You're disrupted from the word go, man. I ask you now, Mr. Chairperson, excuse this witness, we want to address you.
You can address me.
I can't do it in front of the witness.
I'm not letting...
Then I have to phone your senior to send somebody here. I have to phone Mr. Van Heerden or the municipal manager.
You're welcome to do so.
Let them then come and provide us.
You can do so, but...
Then you must allow me to.
Go ahead. We stay in record.
Then you must allow me to do so.
Will I be out of place if I answer the question?
So
That was put to me that should the...
Just remind me of the question, yes, just remind me.
I think the question was that if the city uses a system like this to monitor the drivers, should the driver not have the opportunity to have insight so that you can correct his behavior
Yes,
timeously?
yeah.
Okay, so I've been thinking of an analogy, and the one that I could come up with is then that is like saying the Metro Police must give me a warning every time I go over the speed limit so that I don't get a speed fine.
I follow the
when I go over the speed limit.
Yeah, I follow the narratives.
You know, it doesn't work like that. If you go over the speed limit, you know that you're supposed to stay under the speed limit. You know what the rules are. So it's not necessary for the Metro Police to have to warn me, oh, you're going to go over the speed limit now, be careful, otherwise you're going to get a fine. It doesn't work like that. The rules are already laid out, whether there's monitoring or not.
I'm going to respond, but Mr. Chair, I asked to address you in the absence of this witness.
No,
That is what I asked. That is where I am, and that's our position.
No, you can phone the city manager ever, but
Mr. Chair,
if you don't want to,
I ask you the position to address you in the absence of the witness.
and I say no.
And you say no. So I'm saying to you, then you need to stop because you are denying my member is right.
No.
And I can understand your ignorance and your consistency and your persistency. You are violating his rights in terms of the collective code, collective agreement. I have a right, we have a right to stop proceedings and ask to speak to you in the absence of a witness.
Okay, just give me the paragraph. If you're right, I'll do so. I've got it here. If you can help me, Mr. Peterson can help me maybe. There's nothing in there, like, okay.
So there's nothing. So you are agreeing that I can't ask the chairperson to address him in the absence of the witness.
You can ask, but if the chair makes a ruling that we continue, he said no.
He needs to explain to us where. He needs to explain why. He can't just say no because he's a chairperson. He must give us a reason on record why he's saying no.
Don't shout at me, Mr. Flask.
He must give me a reason. You know the rules.
No, we must say that he must give a reason in terms of that.
Mr. Flask was just asked to continue with your cross-examination, or we have...
You deny the member his right to a defense, and I ask to address you in the absence of the witness.
I'm not denying anything. I'd like you to continue.
If I'm going to continue, then I'm going to continue on the questions that I asked them, not be interrupted by you as the chairperson or by Mr. Peterson.
Don't shout.
Mr. Peterson has not got a right in this proceeding just to talk out of free will. He asked, Mr. Chair, I've got something. That's number one. Number two, he waits until we ask him for his advice.
Okay, I understand.
And I'm saying by you allowing this man to sit here and do what he wants to, you're violating the rights of this proceedings against this member. And you cannot do that.
Mr. Flask, I understand what you say, but my ruling remains that you must please...
Then you rule sideways.
Yes.
Then you rule Mr. Peterson will respond when he's asked for something.
Mr. Peterson has done nothing here today or this day which in any way violated...
He didn't just talk here.
Rights. He did not in any... He didn't do anything which disadvantaged Mr. Abrams. So if you didn't want to continue with your cross-examination, then I have to ask Mr. Van der Wateren to redirect.
Right. The rules. And I want you to say to me in this rule where it says the Labour Relations Officer speaks in the conduct of a disciplinary hearing, which is point 7. You must want me to put it to you.
What about point 7? Which one? Paragraph?
You're going to show to me what paragraph there that it says the Labour Relations Officer, because we're not going to have two representatives here from the employer. Either Mr. Vater gaan or Mr. Peterson go. The employer representative shall have the duty to begin as well as the burden to prove. In discharging these duties, the employer shall be entitled to call before whatever any witnesses or documents. Subject to objections, cross-examination, any witness called to testify on behalf of the employer and inspect any book, document or relevant item produced. Present arguments. Now, up until there, Mr. Chair, it makes it clear who's got the right to object to any sort of information, question, not the Labour Relations Officer. It says the employer representative. So we can then concisely and precisely concede that Mr. Peterson is employer representative and not Mr. Vater. Sorry. Mr. van der Wateren.
Mr. Flash, can I say, if you look at paragraph 7, it says the hearing 7.1 shall be conducted by the presiding officer who may determine the procedure to be followed subject to the following, and then that the rules of natural justice must be observed in the conduct of the procedures, and then it says it will be adversarial in hearing. So what it says is the presiding officer shall conduct the hearing and obey the rules of natural justice. Now, that's what I'm doing. Nothing that Mr. Peterson has done has violated Mr. Abrams' rights.
Yes, he did. When I cross-examined this man, he said the relevance. He hasn't got, unless you stop and you ask him, he can comment. He can't say, no, Mr. Chair, no relevance. He must go. It says the employer representative shall do it. If I have an official, a counsel, a lawyer sitting here and I'm presenting a case and he speaks out of turn, what are you going to do? You're going to call him to order. Why can't you call the labor relations officer to order when he knows he's out of line in terms of the rules? If Mr. van der Wateren had to say to me, Mr. Chair, relevance, I wouldn't have made such a fuss.
Okay.
Because it's his work, it's his responsibility. And now when I say it in my objections, lodge it to you as the chairperson, procedurally, you're saying to me you're not going to stop and you're going to make me speak in front of the witness, then so it's going to be. By putting it to you that as a chairperson, your biasness is unacceptable. You need to recuse yourself from these proceedings because you are not prepared to bring the labor relations officer to terms.
Okay, Mr. Flask, I hear what you say. But at this point, I must ask you to continue with your cross-examination because all you're doing now is to disrupt the proceedings.
For you, yes.
You're not doing your member any favors in this behavior. I mean, I must be honest with you. Would you like
to ask him, how does he feel, Mr. Chairperson?
No, what I'm saying is that you're not really acting in his best interest because you're disrupting the proceedings. So please, your duty is to cross-examine the witness to see if there's any doubt.
I can only continue, Mr. Chair, if you're going to rule on the point of Mr. Peterson's participation in this process.
Okay, my duty.
Up until then, you're going to have to, because my current status as to where we are as chairperson and defendant between us, my objection is to Mr. Peterson's
Okay. I
was going to say a word, but anyway, he's improper. He's improper. If he wants to say something, he raises his hands. Let us stop. Number two, I'm still busy, Mr. You know, it's not a point of order. I'm talking. I'm still busy talking to the chair. It's not a point of order. The second point is, if I am sitting here, Mr. Peterson knows the rules. Mr. Wateren can say not relevant. I object. I do this, which he's allowed to do. But now we're sitting with the third element, as a matter of fact, a fourth element in this hearing, to put relevance and non-relevance. You haven't asked him or say, okay, Mr. Flask, okay, let me just establish something from Mr. Peterson. And I would have allowed you to ask Mr. Peterson that question, Mr. Peterson, and he says, and respond to you, now it's not relevant. There's nothing like, because then you've asked him. But you haven't asked him, he interjected. And I'm saying that's improper.
I understand.
And that is where we are, Mr. So it's not doing him justice or injustice. It is the process that needs to be applied here for him to enjoy a fair and just trial. And I'm saying that by Mr. Peterson's way of doing it, it's not correct. He raises his hand, he asks for something, but if he can't, certain things he can't raise. Because I could have, Archie could have been sitting here, any of my labor specialists could have been sitting here. How would you have felt if they did what Mr. Peterson has just done? You know, and the consistent procedure really needs to be applied, and that is where we are, Mr. Chair. So if we want me to continue with the witness procedurally, then we need to sort of get understanding Mr. Peterson's participation, his role.
Fine. Okay. Mr. Peterson, you raised your hand.
Cheers, thanks. I think we can continue. I can agree that I will only speak when you parties ask me to speak.
Fine.
However, I find that it was irrelevant to ask a question what he would have done if he was the employer of people in the air for fleet. For me, that is neither here nor there. But I will abide
Okay,
that I will only speak when requested to speak, Chief.
fine. Thank you. Is that... Can we proceed, Mr. Flask, on that basis?
You see what animosity is caused, sir. Mr. Chairperson, this witness testified. And you my witness. Did this witness not say to this proceeding, without me saying or asking, he's an employee of an organization, he wants to do this?
Mr. Flask, you put in the question.
No, Mr. Chair, we need to correct Mr. Kenneth's behavior here. And you will see my objection why I feel like that.
Do you want me to put in the
This
question?
witness says it to us.
But do you want me to put in the question now?
No, but what I'm asking, please, Mr. Chairperson, Mr. Peterson responded.
Yeah.
And I respect him for that. But I am not, you can't say to me non-relevance on something
Okay.
that a witness said. If it was something that I asked that is separate to what the witness said, and relevance or non-relevance, then I'll accept it. But he said it.
Okay, so we've moved beyond that now.
So procedurally, Mr. Chairperson, we are asked to address in the absence, and you said no. Procedurally, you have an obligation to ensure non-biasness.
Yeah.
And for me at this time and for our member, it is bias on your part to allow this type of things to happen. And if you are saying to me, I can't examine the witness based on what he's testifying, then Mr. Peterson must be called out of order.
Okay, but we've agreed that he will only raise his hand, and when I ask him, he will respond. We've
Am I
agreed on
allowed?
that.
Am I then allowed to ask him based on what he answers?
Yes,
If he says the sun is shining outside, can I cross-examine him on that? Can we get that straight?
Yeah. Can I say, the cross-examination is meant to be on the evidence in chief. Evidence in chief.
I agree, Mr. Chair. We don't dispute it, sir.
Okay, so if, and I want, let's deal with this a bit. He gave evidence about how the system works.
Correct. And he gave answers to that,
Yeah,
what Mr.
yeah,
Water and
yeah.
Mr. Water and that asked.
Mr. Water, he led evidence, he asked
Correct.
questions, he gave an explanation of how the system works. And that was his evidence in chief.
I don't dispute that.
The cross-examination,
He's interrogating his answers.
yes.
Now that is what I've been doing. And now while I'm...
No, can I say? No,
Yes.
please listen. So, if you ask questions which indicate that some of the things he said weren't true, or in his answers that he gave to you, he contradicted what he said in his evidence, that would diminish his credibility. But what you are doing is you put to him, let's say, hypothetical question. Yesterday you asked him a question about the policy. Now he gave no evidence about policy. So then you put him a question about policy, and his answer was, assuming there's a policy, I think there's a policy, or something like that was his answer, because he doesn't really know. So if you start going down those kind of avenues where you ask him questions of which he didn't give evidence, then no, it does not really serve a purpose, because it doesn't say anything about the credibility of his evidence. If you ask him a hypothetical question like, then it doesn't help us in any way.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to try and be somehow... I'm going to move away from a lot of things. The issue here for us, I'll ask him questions. The witness is answering. The answers he gives, basically his officer and somebody civic senator, the answer the witness that he gives, I want to interrogate that. When I interrogate it, it doesn't mean it's coming from me. He said it. So if Mr. Peterson feels it's non-relevant, then we must withdraw his answers that he answered to. I'm not putting, before I ask him about the company, if he's the owner, he testified in his frustration though. If he's the owner, he would like to manage his staff. whether there's a tracker system or
It's a
not.
hypothetical answer.
Yeah, again,
No, you can't go on and
Whether
ask
it
the
is
witness
hypothetical or
what,
not,
what he will do in a situation in the council. He doesn't work for council. So
the best part, they've got a system, billions of taxpayers' money in the council that is on before us. So we're not going to run away from it here. We're there.
no, I'm not running away from it.
Please, let us not confuse ourselves, Mr. Chairperson. If you want to do what, okay, let us extract and withdraw everything about this witness and evidence. Because you don't work for the council. Therefore, everything he says is, he's brought you as a specialist. Let's kick him out. We can't have it both ways. You bring a witness here, you expose him. And that exposure means he'll be subjected to cross-examination.
Mr. Flux, when I spoke now, you actually agreed with me that the witness is meant to be cross-examined on his evidence.
Which I'm doing. And his evidence is what is testifying.
No, but in the example I used is when you asked me about policy, he never gave any
Mr.
evidence
Chair,
on policy. And then you question him on policy. And
Mr. Chair, I'm sure we are more mature than that. I asked him if there is a known policy, tracker policy. And he answered it and he covered it. And I was happy with it. And there was no labor that way we're laboring now. You want to justify it. His company must have a tracker policy on which they sell it, which they use it, which they implement it. And he will say they don't. And I will get that in my closing.
okay.
And part of the policy should actually, and I'm currently doing it in matter of education and training, which should be their company's policy to say that when an organization like the City of Cape Town uses our tool, our policy says the people in that staff, the operators, should be trained. And that is what I wanted to establish. To mention that for you it might be non-relevant, for you it might be non-relevant. It's relevant for us. That's that. You now see where you're taking, and I don't want to be there. But remembering, Mr. Chairperson, this is our position. You might not like it, or you might not agree with it, but it's actually statutory laws that covers time and attendance. It's evident by the evidence before us, this document and that document, that we are speaking to time and attendance and the accuracy of the data and information. When we link the two in terms of the time statutory law with time and attendance for all of our nation, every worker, not necessarily just the driver, must have access to correct something. Like time and attendance says on your system, no clock in, error. Namibia, error. Do you understand where I'm coming from with the policies?
Okay.
Now, I'm sorry that I have to explain this to you in such in length. Why ask him that question based on his answer? Why my questions is there? It is to show you at the end of this hearing. And I know we all get frustrated, but so be it. Because like you say, the employer must prove, I must defend. To challenge the system, the employer witnesses, evidence, and to discredit them. But I wouldn't like to be interrupted by Mr. Kennedy Peterson in the way he does.
I understand.
I ask a simple thing what I'm saying to you. And that is where I am, Mr. Chair. So I wouldn't like us to fight on something that we shouldn't be fighting on in front of a witness, all as municipal staff members. Not correct, Mr. Chairperson.
Okay, I understand. Can we now proceed with the witness?
Yes, we can. I would rather
Thank you.
ask that we have a 10-minute break or 5-minute break, Mr. Chairperson.
No, why do you ask Mr. Peterson? But yes.
No, I'm not asking. I'm looking at him. I'm looking at him.
Okay, let's have a 10-minute break and then we
Yes,
come back.
I look at him and for a specific reason, because I'd like him to forgive me for what I do to him. And I would like me to forgive you for what I do to him.
You only ask forgiveness if there is something wrong. So thank you, Mr. Flass, for your opinion.